11 days. 28 coolers. 1,200 pounds of ice. And by the end, only 2 were still standing. We didn't do this in a lab. No climate chamber, no garage. These sat outside, in real heat, exactly the way they'd ride in the back of your truck. So if you're about to drop $300 on a cooler in 2026, stick around, because the brand that won this test isn't the one you'd guess, and the one that disappointed me most might be sitting in your garage right now. Before we get into it, if you're into real gear testing instead of spec sheet marketing, hit subscribe and tap that like button. It genuinely helps this channel keep doing tests like this one. Alright, let's get into the results. Here's exactly how we ran this, because if you don't know the method, the results don't mean anything. All 28 coolers came inside the night before, so they'd start at the same baseline temperature. The next morning, each one got loaded with 40 pounds of ice, packed as full as the cooler allowed, since that's the best case scenario, and it's only fair to test every cooler that way. Into each one went a few cans of soda and a hot dog wrapped in plastic, our food safety stand-in. Then, every single day, I took for measurements per cooler. 1. Is there still ice? Yes or no? 2. Lid temperature with an infrared thermometer. 3. Can the ice still suspend a can of soda on top? 4. Hot dog temperature, checked with a probe, to see if it's sitting in the safe zone for stored meat. 1 point per category, per day. For points maximum. Once a cooler scored 0 across the board, it was done. These were all medium to large hard coolers, the size a family of 4 or 5 would actually take camping for a long weekend. And they stayed outside the entire test. Heat, sun, real conditions, 24/7. Day 1 through 3, the baseline. Day 1, everything looks identical. That's the boring part nobody shows you. But it matters, because by day 4, the gap is already opening up. The Rotomold coolers, your Yeti Tundras, your Orions, your Orcas, your Otterbox Ventures, were already running several degrees colder on the lid than the conventional Blowmold coolers. Thicker walls, denser foam, tighter gasket seals. That's not brand loyalty talking, that's the thermometer. One surprise on day 1, the Igloo Max Cold, the Costco exclusive model, was already showing lid temps over 50 degrees. In my opinion, that's a cooler that's losing heat out the top before we've even hit the 24-hour mark, and the lid insulation looks like the likely culprit. Day 4 through 7, the first casualties and the big shakeout. By day 4, ice in several coolers was clumping into a solid mass, so I broke it up, the same adjustment you'd make on an actual trip. Day 5 brought the first official dropout, the basic Coleman cooler, rated for 3 days, which actually made it 4. Solid for the price, but the math is simple, that's a short trip cooler. Meanwhile, Grandpa's old Igloo, a genuinely old, hand-me-down design, was still holding cold on day 5 without suspending cans anymore. Whatever vintage that cooler is, it earned some respect. Day 6 claimed 2 more, including the Igloo Coho, another Costco exclusive Rotomold model. No ice left, warm lid, hot dog well above the safe zone. That one surprised me. In my opinion, the specs on paper look competitive with the bigger names, but it didn't perform like one here. Day 7 is where it got brutal, 8 coolers dropped in a single day. That included the Pelican Elite, an injection mold cooler that barely scraped past the week mark. Worth noting, injection mold coolers from premium brands often cost nearly as much as Rotomold ones, but in this test, they clearly didn't insulate the same way. But 2 underdog stories stood out here too. The Coleman Extreme Marine. A budget cooler you can find for $60 to $70 is only rated for 5 days. It made it past 7. Pound for pound, that's the single best value performance of this entire test, in my opinion. The smaller Cordova, Rover Roll Tank, and Pelican Elite wheeled coolers also dropped around this point, all of them under 50 quarts, which tracks, since less ice mass simply melts faster regardless of build quality. After day 7, 13 coolers eliminated, 15 still standing. A full week of real ice retention from over half the field is a genuinely strong result across the board. Day 8 through 9, the gasket effect. Day 8 is where the field really splits. The Arctic and the Yeti tundra ran out of ice completely, but their lids were still measuring below 50 degrees, the insulation still doing its job even with no ice left. The guide gear and lifetime coolers, by contrast, were warm all around by this point, out of the running. The Otterbox Venture had a leaking drain valve early in the test. Once that got sorted, it actually held up well, worth remembering, since a hardware flaw isn't the same thing as an insulation flaw, and it's an easy fix if it happens to you. By the end of day 8, only 4 coolers still had actual ice: the Orion, the Orca, the Cabela's Polar Cap Equalizer, and the Otterbox Venture. Here's the pattern that decided this whole test: every single cooler that made it past day 9 had a fully gasket-sealed lid. No exceptions. Coolers without that airtight seal were done by this point, no matter how thick their walls were. Day 10 through 11, the finish line. By day 10, the Orca was out, still cool inside, but no ice left. That left the Orion cooler and the Cabela's Polar Cap Equalizer, both still under 50 degrees, both still technically holding on. Day 11, and that's it. Both ran completely dry, and checking the timestamps. The ice on both had actually been gone since sometime the previous afternoon. They tied at 9 full days of actual ice, with residual cold holding a bit longer after that. Final results. So here's the final stack, worst to first, by days survived. For to 5 days, the basic Coleman and Igloo Max Cold. 6 days, Igloo Coho, Cordova, Rover Roll Tank, Pelican Elite Wheeled, the smaller, sub-50 quart coolers. 7 days, the largest tier by far, 11 coolers strong, Arctic, Yeti Tundra, Coleman Extreme Marine, Pelican Elite, and most of the remaining Rotomold field. The Coleman Extreme Marine is, in my opinion, the best budget performer in the entire test. 8 days, Orca and Otterbox Venture, separated by a single point. 9 days, the winners, tied, Orion Cooler and Cabela's Polar Cap Equalizer. If I had to pick just one to buy myself, I'd lean Orion, but the data says it's a genuine tie. Why this happened? Strip away the brand names, and 3 variables decided this entire test, in order of importance. Gasket seal, first and foremost. Every cooler that lasted past day 9 had an airtight gasket lid. This mattered more than wall thickness, more than rotomold versus injection mold. Capacity, second. Smaller coolers under 50 quarts consistently dropped a day or 2 earlier than larger versions of the exact same construction. More ice mass just takes longer to melt, that's thermodynamics, not marketing. Rotomold construction, third. Not a guarantee of winning by itself, but every cooler that made it past day 7 was rotomold. The value call out. If you want my honest recommendation for most people, the Coleman Extreme Marine. It cost a fraction of what the Orion and Cabela's run, and it outlasted coolers costing 3 to 4 times as much. That's a brand engineering for the price point, not charging for a logo, in my opinion. If your trips never run past 4 or 5 days, you genuinely don't need to spend premium money. Several budget coolers hit or beat their advertised numbers. 11 days, 28 coolers, and it came down to gasket seals and ice mass, not logos and marketing budgets. Full day-by-day data on every single cooler is up on the blog, links in the description. Which result surprised you most? Drop it below, I read every comment. If this saved you from buying the wrong cooler, that's exactly why I make these. Gear up, and get outside.